or extend the route or whatever.
I think that would be worth looking at for the transportation.
The other thing that's quite interesting with the bus transportation is also people who like to bike, because if you are traveling quite a distance, but yet would still like to bike to your final destination, either going or coming back, you can carry your bike on the front of the bus. So you can ride the bus for free for a distance and then unload your bike and ride it and continue riding it. So that's a part of our transportation plan too.
Yeah, I think that's good. I'm one of those fair weather bikers. I like downhill way better than uphill.
I'm a downhill biker too, very committed to downhill. Like
Yes.
skiing, downhill.
Yeah.
Just downhill, you know.
Yeah, downhill.
Right. Oh,
That was my only thought that I was
You got
thinking about.
everybody
discussing.
ready?
But if I think of other things, I'll send them along to you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. We had a good meeting today and shared some ideas and stuff. And we're going to meet, I think it's on anyway, a week from this Thursday. Is it a week from today? Yes. We'll meet again. And so any thoughts you have in between that we can get in the pipeline and get over to the engineers would be good. So we'd appreciate that.
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today. Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Okay, we're ready to roll. Welcome, everybody, to Providence City Council meeting for Thursday, January 28th. This is an additional council meeting for City Council. We went to 10 o'clock last council meeting, so we decided to continue the agenda items for this particular council meeting. We have all of our council members here this evening. Let's go ahead with a pledge of allegiance, and after that, if anybody would like to offer a prayer or thought for this evening, they're welcome to do so. And Ryan has faithfully given us a flag. So if you'll follow me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Anyone like to offer a thought for this evening or prayer? Whose turn is it? Janelle? Go ahead,
Sure.
Janelle.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be gathered together again tonight as a council to discuss the needs of the city and to the needs of the residents, and pray that might help us, that we can feel inspired and guided and know how our choices will affect families and individuals, and that we can make wise decisions as we prepare for the future and handle the present and the things that our city needs. We're grateful for our opportunity to serve together and to develop camaraderie and friendship with each other as council members, and pray that we can continue to do that and work together well as a team. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Just like to add something. I sent a note to all of you about Brian Cox. He's been a friend of Providence City. At one point in time, he was an employee. Brent remembers him. He's down at Huntsman Cancer Center. He said stage 4 cancer. And he said he's starting 5 rounds of radiation treatment. And so he still has a sense of humor. That they did another MRI and CAT scan. Cancer's everywhere. He mentions where, anyway, Just thought I'd pass it on. Keep Ryan and his family in your prayers. All right, let's go ahead with the agenda tonight. We don't have staff reports because we're just continuing where we left off. We have 2 items on the agenda from the last council meeting. Ryan added another item. It's item number 2 that has to do with taxes levied. We'll talk about those. Ryan will give us an outline. But let's go ahead where we left off. We didn't get into this item. It's proposed amendments to the fee schedule, resolution 003/2021. Providence City Council will consider and may take action on a resolution amending the Providence City fee schedule, including but not limited to the following rates and fees: certain development fees, license fees, monthly water rates, monthly sewer rates, monthly water stormwater rates, garbage rates, and green waste rates. I know that Ryan has fielded a number of questions. He and I spent a bit of time on this. So let's go ahead with discussion on that with Ryan leading it. And I'll go ahead and ask for a motion on this so we can discuss this item. I have a motion from the council. Can they hear us, right?
I think they can hear us. It might.
I'm still trying to get my files open. Sorry. I'm happy to make the motion if someone prompts me on what the
Okay.
I know it's the fee schedule. If that's enough, I move that we approve the next fiscal year fee schedule. Is that good enough?
Right. Resolution 003/2021.
Thank
Is
you.
that your motion? Okay. All right. Motion
Yes.
from Councilman Paulson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Council Member Kirk. Ryan, you want to?
Yeah, let me walk through this. First of all, council, I understand that this is a lot to digest and a lot to go through. So I don't expect that it will be an easy conversation on all of these, but I would like to start on a few basic points. One, I have gone through a variety of rates and kind of intend to go through a shuffle of the rates as we look. The idea is what rates are we ahead on? What rates are we behind on? What rates haven't we changed in a while? And is there a good reason to? And what starts that? And I'll start. I'm going to share my screen here, and you see if it's the right size when I get there. All right. Just give me just a second to set up on this. All right. All right, can you see my screen? Everybody
Yes.
can see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So what I've done is I have taken along here, and the different rates are along the bottom, and we'll go through each one and kind of talk about what it is. But I'd like to start over here on this one. What has happened and what we've done is we have this is our property tax. And so you'll note that Providence is the highest in the property tax. So you'll see here's Logan, they're trending, they trend down. We came along, we had the property tax increase from the fire contract, which is appropriate because you can't pay for the fire contract outside of that. So that's where it had to go. But it has put us in the highest, as that goes, it has put us in the highest rate of the cities of some substantial size. There are some smaller cities. I think Lewiston is smaller. I didn't include them, but I do think they actually do have a higher rate. I think they use one of the maximum rates. But to consider, we're looking at this. So what I've done is I've kind of said, you know, what happened this last year? We consciously chose to reduce the property tax rate, reducing the revenue to the city. So at that point, we reduced this past year, and that's why you'll see the fall in the rate. We reduced by $53,740. It was about a 5% reduction in the rate. So, but it still leaves us as one of the top rates. So overall, my presentation will be to say, I'm recommending to increase some of the other rates that may make sense, and then accommodating the continued fall of this rate until we get to a middle ground on our property tax rates. So at that point, some of this is going to be offset. Some of the increases you would consider on the other fees will be offset through our property tax being reduced. One of the reasons for this is there is a few entities in Providence that don't pay property tax. You'll see that the nonprofits, the churches, the schools, those don't pay a property tax. So having the highest property tax shifts the burden from those to residents, but having fee for service shifts some of that back. So that is part of what is being talked about here. So I'm not talking about gouging residents or increasing fees, just increase fees. What I'm looking at and what I'm presenting here is how do we find a balance between our fees and our taxes, and how does that make sense? So that's what this is. That's the underlying thing. Any questions up to that point before I go into individual rates?
Ryan?
Yes.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is if we make this maneuver, we will reduce the property tax by $53,710.40. And then that will reduce the amount of property tax that the individual property owners will have to pay this coming fall. And so that now that we're going to deal with a reduction, now we can go look at possibly increasing some fees that will be more directly across the board related to everybody.
That is mostly true, but this 53 is what we reduced what was the value of our reduction in rate. That was what happened. So that was reality last year. That was what happened to bring that rate down. So consciously in the budget that we had, that was the reduction already. So it has already occurred. So this 53 has already occurred.
Okay.
Now we're talking rates and reducing rates. We can reduce an accelerated reduction, but we are looking at reducing rate, and sometimes that ties, because it's part of the function, we are looking at reducing property tax revenue and raising rates so that we can balance. So most of what you said was true. I just wanted to clarify a few pieces. Does that help?
Ryan?
Yes.
Will you then, in fact, will there be any more decrease in property tax, or is that just the normal attrition reduction that comes on an annual basis?
So this is when you say normal attrition.
Well, detrition, I guess. I don't know what the reduction.
Well, this is a reduction. I mean, if based on the valuation, if we'd kept that rate the same, that would have stayed. You'll see several of them. They will hold their rate the same. We had that based on our history and what we had been doing up to that point. It is a true decrease.
Okay.
And we would lower that again. So it would continue to come down. Next year, you'd see that it would be down farther. And we're looking to have a spot somewhere in the, probably in a 0.0015 range. At some point, that's where we're trying to go. Somewhere in that middle range. Does that help?
Yes, me, yes.
Okay, any other questions up to this point, and then I'll start in on rates, because I'm sure there will be questions. And I should clarify, I'm only giving facts and figures. I have some recommendations based on what I've seen and those, but the evaluation and assessment of fees is on the council. That whether you go up, down, I just want to make sure that when you've made your decision, I've given you information that you can act on if you want or not. So none of these have to be approved, not anything mandatory. It's just, I did tell you before that I would bring evaluation of rates in the December, January time period. I am bringing that, as I told you. Most of you probably forgot I said it, and that's okay. I'm just trying to fulfill what I had said. So anyway, that's where we're at. If there's not other questions, I'll go to the water rates. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay. So the first three here, water, sewer, and stormwater, are calculated slightly differently than sanitation, recycle, and green waste. So water, sewer, and stormwater, what I did is the start of this one is a comparison of other cities to see how we compare and to see if that makes a difference. And I've taken different approaches. One, to learn how the council wants me to go. So I'm trying to fill out a few options in order to find out. So please give me feedback of what you like and what you don't like, because they are different. So water rates, what I have done is you'll see the comparison to the cities around us. And what I did is I took the average of what the rate of all the cities around us is. I took the 75th percentile and calculated what does that look like if we want it to be not the peak, but a price leader, what would that look like? And then I calculated if I look, because there are those that are on a fixed income, I went out and found the last 40 years worth of Social Security cost of living increases. So if they are on Social Security and that's their only income, there is a yearly increase to them. And so I wanted to be conscious of what that looked like and said, what does it look like? And there's only been about 4 times in 40 years that they haven't had an increase. So I wanted to be conscious of that. And so I calculated based on an inflation period from the last rate change, what that inflation period would have been, because I didn't want to inflate the rate by more than what the cost of living had been since that last rate change. Rather than 4% a year, I went and plugged it. So that's what this is. It creates a floor for me and says, I really don't need to, well, it creates a ceiling for me. I'm not proposing to go above that point. So you'll see then I took the least of those options, and on this particular one, I said the least of those options would have actually been a 14% increase. I don't think that was appropriate, so I arbitrarily picked 4%. Why I picked that? Because it wasn't outrageous. And I didn't feel like having any major increases in a particular year were appropriate. But that's what I took. It compares with others. And then what I did with water, I said, well, how much is the O&M? what are our projects? How much total gallons did we process through?
I don't
what's-
know the acronym O&M, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Operation and maintenance.
Okay,
So those are our costs associated with providing this service. Yep. No, anytime you don't have one, always let me know. That was great. And K I use for 1,000. Why K? I'm
got
not.
that.
Okay. So at that point, our average over the last 4 years is about 96 cents per 1,000 gallons is what it costs us to produce with our O&M. That's kind of an average. Our current overage is 75 cents, and then we have another tier that goes from 75 cents to $1.50. This proposal would be to increase by 4% the residential, and then or the 1 inch less, the 2 inch, the 1.5, 2. So there is some. Usually the higher it goes, the more commercial connection it is. But then I am recommending or proposing you consider a broader breakout of water structure, saying if they use more, the more they use, the more they pay, and that promotes conservation. And it is in line with the averages of elsewhere, and back to that same formulas. So at that point, it does increase this from 75 cents to 85 cents. It is a 13% increase, but it is still less than the per 1,000 gallon O&M cost if we calculate that. I do have some notes that I put in here on our 10-year water capital improvement plan. We have $7.5 million in projects, which would expect to have a $750,000 per year income to fund those if we're going to fund those as we go. Over the last 9 years, the fund increase has been $636,000. So we're very close. It's not like we're losing money on water. We aren't quite building up for all of our projects, but we have some built. So anyway, that's kind of what it is. This would say, first recommendation would be to implement the rate structure from a 2 to a 5 tier. And then the increase of the 4% in the base one. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Questions on water?
So can you tell me when these rates were last looked at? Like, is it different for each one? And how often, now that we have a city manager, are we going to be looking at rates?
Well, I would say we haven't, what I'm told, and I wasn't here then, but the last time we increased water rates was October 11th of 2011. So 9 years ago.
Okay.
Brian,
Yes.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to answer the second one. And now that you have a city manager, how often times are you going to look at rates? Well, at that point, I will only bring them if there's something of an imbalance. But I would say, on a yearly basis, we ought to at least evaluate what our rates are. Not that we propose changes, but at least evaluate on an annual basis. Because what I'm looking for is some direction on rates, so that when I start to build the budget, I know where we're at.
A couple of questions, Ryan, to you. First, I'm wondering, so when we build a apartment complex, is there a single meter that serves that apartment complex? Now, I'm not talking about, I would assume townhomes have an individual meter. Apartment complex, is that generally served by a large meter? And how many units can one can say a 2-inch meter service or 4? And I know you're not engineers, but I'm just wondering, is this structure a single family, like 2325, for instance, and you have an apartment house that may have, I don't know, 6 units in it, and you got a 2-inch meter going into it, well, 6 into that, that leaves you $8 a unit. Tell me how that works.
I'm gonna see, wasn't expecting the question, but that's okay. I'm gonna see if Rob has a good answer before I answer so that it can be specific to that, because I think he would have a good knowledge to that. Rob, would you be willing to answer that question?
Sure. Most townhomes, condos, or PUDs, HOA situations in town are running off of 2-inch meters. Some of the areas like Creekside has multiple 2-inch meters. A 2-inch meter can service quite a few townhomes. Certain bigger areas such as the Vineyards or Cobblestone are running through a 4-inch meter, and the one single 4-inch meter will handle the entire development.
So you're telling me that the Vineyard has a single 4-inch meter and you're supplying all those homes in there for the rate cost of $237.
Well, Vineyards is a little bit special. All the single family homes in there have a single 1-inch meter to the single family homes, but all of the condos and all of the townhomes are fed through one single 4-inch meter.
And how many would you estimate we're talking about?
Oh, you can easily feed 150 to 200 townhomes through a 4-inch meter, if not more. The bigger the pipe, you get a lot of volume through upsizing your pipe sizes, a lot.
Okay, so then the question comes back. I realize that we're talking overage of 10,000 to 50,000 gallons. With a 4-inch meter receiving 10,000 gallons, that would probably exceed that 10,000 gallons pretty fast. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so then it would go to the overage schedule, and therein they would be forced to pay a higher share to the higher amount of money to the city. Has anybody ever worked that out? If you, for instance, served 100 homes off a 4-inch meter and say they used an average of, I don't know how many gallons, say 150,000 gallons a year or a month, how that relates to the $23 as 100 homes being served by this meter, which would be $2.30 per home, but then the overage is broke down over the 100. Has anybody ever looked at that? And I guess my question is this a fair breakdown, a single family or single 1-inch meter versus a large meter that's serving a larger population?
We have, there's other scenarios that you kind of have for variables to look at, and that's some of these areas will have a separate meter for irrigation purposes. And so Cobblestone and Deer Creek are great examples of that, where they might have a large meter and they're paying a larger base rate for that larger meter, but their gallons are going to stay in line with what a typical indoor usage would be, which is going to be in that 5 to 14,000 gallons a month range for indoor use. So whatever they're, depending on how much green space they have to water, is going to reflect on their bill and how much they water it. Some people are pretty careless, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but I could throw some names out there that really, really water a lot just because they like really, really green grass and they saturate it. And those HOAs can be known for that.
But that's a separate meter, right? The HOA outside watering would be a separate meter.
Most of them have a separate irrigation meter, not all of them.
Okay.
But they're paying for both meters irregardless. They'd be paying the rate for the 4-inch meter and the quantity that goes through it, and the rate for a different size meter, likely a 2-inch meter, that's taking care of their irrigation needs.
I guess my concern is, say you got 100 homes being served by a 4-inch meter, that's $2.37 a month is the water bill per unit. And then compared to a single family home that's got a 1-inch meter, who pays $23.25 for that same quantity, about the same quantity of water. They pay a little bit more. But I don't know, does that balance out? Are we doing the right thing here?
It really does for the most part. I mean, the variables kind of make it a little sketchy on a couple of them that I've seen, but it balances out for the most part. The average.
Okay.
Rob, for that. Appreciate the help.
Sure.
Any other questions on water?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First, the water tank project, is that part of the $7.5 million in projects that we just funded?
So it would be, yes, it is part of that. But keep in mind that once that goes off, you know, another potential project could come on. But yes, so that would be one of those projects. It's kind of an example of that, yes.
So the O&M amount that you're aiming at for 750 would cover the payments on that bond.
So the 750 I'm shooting for is the net change, not O&M, but yes. So that would cover that bond. And then we would, on that particular one, we would be looking at an impact fee and having some of that new tank paid through new connections.
Okay. And then my second question was, I know while we were working on the Spring Creek water agreement to use more gravity fed water, how much do you think that would reduce the cost for operation and maintenance?
Yeah, it would definitely increase, it would definitely decrease the cost. So my numbers, so that you're aware, my numbers are historical and not a projection of what that savings would be. So, but I would, so in the numbers I've presented, that is not calculated. But I would say that we're probably expecting to save between 25 and 30,000, maybe on the amount we have. If we can get more, we'll save more. But that's kind of our expectation at this point.
Okay. Thanks.
Rocky Mountain Power did increase our rates by 250%. So, and that is coming. It hasn't been affected on our wells, on our pump wells. So it's not all of our electric, but on our pump wells, they have increased the Rocky Mountain Power has told us that they are increasing our rate by 250% during peak hours.
That's understandable because they're mad that their protest didn't get any traction against the change application.
I hope that's not why, but they do it all over.
Hey, Ryan, explain to me the tier level down that last comment.
Okay. Tier level is here. So we are one of the few. There are some, but several will have different tiers. Like North Logan, they have a tier system. There are some that have, like we do, the 2-tier. But North Logan is kind of the example of how they're tiering. We do have Hyde Park that has a tiered system. And so anyway, there is a few other ones that have a tiered system. It is based on from 10,000 to 50,000 gallons. They would pay, currently they pay 75 cents, and everything over that. But we would say 50,000 to 100,000, it would pay $1.50. From 100,000 to 150,000, they would pay $1.54. Now, you fill your buckets first, so it's kind of like tax rates. Once you have 5,000 or 50,000 gallons in one, you get taxed at this rate for one of those gallons. But you tax here for that 40,000 gallons, and then it goes to here. and it kind of fills as a waterfall. So just because you use over 200 doesn't mean all of your water's at this. It means you had 40,000 at this, you had 50,000 here, and it goes up. So very similar to what your tax structure would be. And it's designed to help those, if they use less water, then they don't have to pay that and they keep in a lower tier. So does that help?
It does. The question I have, in these categories, starting with the $1.50 in those 4 tiers, do we have many users exceeding into these tiers? And okay, so maybe they cross over to I would believe the 50 to 100,000 gallons in the summertime. That might happen. What about the other tiers? Do we have a lot of people crossing over to that? In other words, are we giving them too much discount on their water if they cross those levels?
I'd have to look at water rates specifically there. We probably have some that are using more, like a Macy's would be using more. I'd have to look at theirs. And this is in a month. A residential house, we're not talking too many resident houses that would go there. But we are talking some of the businesses would be in these other tiers. I don't know whether, Rob, I don't know whether you have a feel for that or whether you've looked at it either.
Yeah, churches are the ones that are not very water wise. They do cross over the tiers more often than most people. They really like to keep things green and aren't real conscious of that tier system. They're the most common large user, but overall, we don't have a lot of.
Probably schools would probably fall into that, right?
Correct. But houses, residential homes and condos, typically they go into those higher tiers, but not way into those higher tiers. No, so you remember that's $1.50-ish per 1,000 gallons, and so most people they're going to go into it a little bit if they want green grass, and then that's true no matter where you go, unless you have a pressurized irrigation system or some form of secondary water. So if they have green grass in Providence, you are going to hit those higher tiers, but most people stay in like the 60 to 80,000 gallons for a typical residential lot. But many that really like green grass, or their checkbook just seems to be endless, they really water a lot and they get into those higher tiers.
Right. Brent's point there, I don't know. I don't know if this would be worthwhile or how difficult it would do. Maybe not for this time, but it's interesting to think of, we look at these numbers as just being values and have a hard time looking at it as to the residents that they affect, or the businesses that they affect, or the types of things. And clearly we have that data. It would be interesting to look and see, because there's been several questions about that tonight. What are townhomes using, or how much water they are using? And it seems like it'd be fairly, as long as the data were there, if people were in classifications so we could see how many households or residents or building types would fall into these various categories. So as we made these decisions, we'd purposely be knowing, who were the winners and losers, if you will, that we're picking, or if it's relatively uniform. Did I relay that thought okay?
Yes. Oh.
Related. One of the difficulties we have, 2,500 connections at 12 months worth. It's a lot of data to compile and do. If it's making that much of a difference, we sure could look. I just letting you know that the size of the study.
Yes, I figured it was a lot of data, but it seems like periodically it might be something that's worthwhile being done. The reason I do it is you also worry about the people on the margins here. There's groups that fall through the cracks here and are disproportionately affected, and it's nice to know how much so they are. I do feel like we, like a bell curve, we probably capture most people in a reasonable rate change, but I do have that worry when I look at numbers like this that are removed from people as to knowing how those numbers affect people.
Sure. No,
So, and my question, and I might be jumping the gun. So if we haven't looked at this for 10 years, are you finding that that's the length of time that we're talking about for all of the other rates also?
No, not necessarily, no.
So you'll make sure you explain that as you go, because
Yep.
okay, I mean, to me, it's frustrating that we haven't looked at it in 10 years. And, you know, if we needed to incrementally increase, it just makes it makes a lot more sense to do it a little as we go rather than wait 10 years and then.
Yes, agreed. Fortunately, water, we're not that far off. And even if we don't raise anything in the meter rates, and we just implement a rate structure for those that use more, at a minimum, you know, it would be nice if at some point we were close to being able to recover as you use more and we have that cost, if they're using that much, you know, at least to recover some of that, it does help the residents, and it would have a charge on business, schools, and those others. And there would be some of those that would fall in there. But the resident is still not up to that 96-cent average. But I would say I'm not alarmed that I mean it's a long time, so you don't have to go at it you don't have to raise a rate every time and every year. I mean, we're looking at only less than $1 raise over a 10-year period isn't so bad. I mean, at water, we've kept costs down. There's been some good things happen there. So I don't know that we've had to raise it every year, but that's just the last time it has been increased.
No, and I'm just saying, like, as you raise each one of the rates, if you're, you know, it's $1 here on this one, but then more on the others. Everything
Yes.
combined is more of a shock to a homeowner when they haven't budgeted for it.
Understood.
If we stagger it, especially in the future, stagger it so that we're not hitting them all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and tonight, can we choose to approve some and not others? Like, can we pick and choose?
Yes, this is a cafeteria. You're welcome to pick and choose what you like and leave the rest.
Something that I like that you did was looking at set incomes. And I think that gives me a little bit of peace of mind to speak to maybe a little bit of thinking about the individual. I think we're all trying to do that, but that this is not more than what's expected to go up. That doesn't make any sense, but it made sense to me.
Yeah, we've tried to be conscious. We really have.
Ryan,
Yes.
I think that 75 cents for 10,000 to 50,000 and the $1.50, I think that's been around longer than the October 11th.
It may very well have been, but the last change to the rates was
Right,
in that period of time.
right. And that was probably the base, probably more down about the 1-inch meter, and maybe some through 1.5, 2, and that. But the overage, I really think I remember it hanging around that back in 2003, thereabouts. But I could be wrong. It's been a while. And my memory's not as sharp as it used to be.
And I can't even remember what the rate was in Providence that long ago. So your memory's better than mine. So
Brent, we have had those rates considered, and we've had some strong pushback from some of our large water users. So I don't think that the councils have chosen to increase those tier rates, but we actually have talked about several different times over the past 8-10 years, but there is a contingent of water users that likes to come and tell us that they already feel like they're paying more than their fair share for those upper tier rates. So I do think it's not been something that's been ignored, but other councils have just had different viewpoints.
I believe Scarlett, I believe I remember those days when this was first established, when Jay Hicken was around and some of those, and we tried to get those rates established. There was a lot of crying and weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. That was a tough time. But yeah, it has stood for a while.
It definitely is good to think about the larger lots, because we do have a lot of large lots in Providence. And you look at, the brand new subdivision in the Estates or right next to Hillsborough, and Hillsborough is a good example where if you've got a lot of grass, they're going to hit those tiers, and those are residents, not schools and churches. And so those are kind of the pushback people that Scarlett's referring to.
One other quick note that, Josh, we do break it down in our utilities. While you were talking, I looked up our utilities, and we do break down residential, commercial, agricultural, apartment, church, school, government, and then we have city-owned and PUDs. So when somebody does sign up for utilities, we do put them under one of those categories. The thing that we don't have broken down really well is residential, like Rob was talking about. We look at a 7,000 square foot lot the same way as we look at a acre lot. It's just in the actual meter usage where you see the difference, but we don't have a difference in our billing structure. Does that make sense?
It does, but we do have some of that. We do have some of that data that could pretty easily be plugged in, so we can see how many, not on the residential, but the different types,
I'm not as good on those reports as Tara is, but we do, so I don't know how refined they are, but yes, we do break it down some that you can see usage by category.
Good.
Other questions on this one? I would ask, does the council have an interest of making any changes to water? We're working on it.
From what's proposed.
From what's proposed, or further study, or at this point that we're talking fairly small adjustments, and understanding that they can be substantial depending on how much usage, if they're high users. So, but
I'm interested, and the reason why I'm interested is because I think doing small incremental changes is better than big jumps. And I also think that when it's tied to the plan to bring taxes down and more evenly split expenses based on what people are using, I think it's a fair thing to look at. I also really like encouraging people to be wise with their water use. It's not an endless commodity.
I guess I would ask do you want to go through everyone and make decisions later, or you want to just decide on what you want on this cafeteria, and I'll go to the next one as we go and eat them as we go? How would you like me to proceed?
Let's take a look at all of the items in the cafeteria and see what all is being presented, so that we, at least in my opinion, we get an idea when we check out how much we're really taxing the people.
Okay, that's fair. Is that good with everybody else? Okay, sounds good. All right. So sewer rates what I've done is one compared with others to see how we fit. And then I've taken into consideration the operation and maintenance and how much of that is the Logan sewer treatment and their percentage of what our total cost is. So our total cost is here. Logan's treatment is 65% of our costs. We really haven't been raising our costs most of the internally, so that's the collection system, but the treatment cost has gone up, and we have an agreement. The rate setting committee has established a 10% per year increase for sewer. So at that point, we didn't make an increase last year, but we saw an increase in the cost. So the rates are being proposed at some different because of market differences. So it's not necessarily just straight across the board. We have looked at it by each individual one, but at that point, we're looking at a 6 to 9 to 8%. So a varying, but mostly about 9% increase, which should keep us on track for the increase that we have seen and will see from Logan City. And this one is one we probably will have to increase by a 6% to 7% each year in order to accommodate for the increase in cost being passed from Logan City. So this is one that is being pushed and driven by cost increases that we will see from Logan City. And in order to keep up with matching our revenue to those costs, that is what we're looking at. And that is, so I've done the same calculation of market calculation, but then I've taken into account and said, where are we at in relation to Logan's rates? There has been some comparison, aren't off of a 10,000 gallon rate. Our last rate change was in 2018. So we didn't have one in 19 or 20. So it hasn't been as long, but we have had 2 years that we haven't seen an increase. But we will see a 10% increase from the sewer treatment until 2022. So those are the years that agreement, that 5-year agreement was over. So I'm proposing, or at least showing the information for you to determine what you want to do. But this is what would be based on market and what our costs are going up. Questions on sewer?
I have a kind of a tied together question, and it's not specific to the rates, but with the sewer, it's been just talked about a little bit about trying to go to Hiram. Do you have any idea what the price difference would be if we did that instead of going to Logan? And also, and this is maybe just my understanding, our water rates, where we take our sewage to get treated in Logan, is some of the water that we get back come from Logan City, like treated water?
No, we don't get any water back. We don't get any treated water back from Logan.
Okay.
Our water comes from wells and spring.
The discharge from the water treated by Logan City goes into Cutler Reservoir.
Okay.
To the previous question, the cost, here's what I've found. One, Millville is going to Hiram. They have determined that that's where they're going to go, and they have purchased in somehow into that plant. I've talked briefly with employees at Hiram and just asked what would it look like for us if we did there. And the response was, well, we probably have to buy our capacity of a plant, and then be able to pipe it. There would be quite a bit of piping from us to at least Millville if we could connect on where they're connected, or if we had to go a different route. I have looked and contacted a couple of different ones for what a study for us would be. And the range for a study was to really calculate down the numbers and make a plan for how that worked, was in the 40 to 60,000 range for the study for us. Now I understand there have been other studies differently, but if we wanted to have our own study for our own path, the time it may make sense or may not, we should consider that if Logan decides that we're undersized or under capacity between us and the lift station of the golf course, if we determine at some point that our effluent has to be upgraded and we have to put in a whole new pipe system from our meter to there, that would be substantial. Also, we would need to look at the impact fees that we're currently receiving and what that affects. So at this point, we don't have a set number for what that would be, but there has been a couple of discussions. I think there was some discussion before I came, and maybe Mayor has some of that he could share.
So 6-7 years ago, we split 3 ways the cost of a study. And it was Nibley, Providence, and Hiram. We would establish a separate, we were considering a district, and there's also another interlocal agency. And that study was done. It looked like it made a lot of sense. The obstacle we ran into is Hiram was placing a value on their plant and their equipment that was about 2.5 times what it was on their books for. So it made it a deal killer. It went on for about 2.5 years. At one point, there was an appraisal done, and they agreed to drop that, and it kind of died at that point. I've heard different stories about Millville. I'll have to ask Mayor Hare, but some people at Logan say that that's what Millville would like to do, but they found that their cost is prohibitive, and they're most likely going to have to go to Logan. The biggest obstacle, the biggest price when we looked at that was the cost just to our city, and part of it was sharing the pipeline with Nibley, was about $5 million just to run the pipeline down there. The cities of Richmond and Wellsville also run their own treatment plants. There's also new technology that's being tested and researched, but it's not ready for prime time. It would be significant savings in treatment costs.
Does that help, Janelle?
Yeah, I just thought if we're going up 10%, did you say 10% annually with Logan
Yeah.
City?
For 5 years.
Yes.
For 5 years. I was gonna say,
Right.
that
And I
seems like
think
that
this is our
could,
last year.
oh, okay. I was
No,
thinking
we have a
that could
couple more
really,
years.
That was 5 years total.
It's 5 years total. We haven't raised it.
Okay.
They raised on 2. We're in their 3rd. We have 2 more.
No, I mean what Logan raised.
Oh, 5 years is what they're.
Right.
Yes. So they're
but we
They're
haven't
doing
made
over a
any,
5-year
we haven't
period of
made
time.
any adjustments over those other 2 years.
the last 2 years, we made no rate increase over the last 2 years that they increased on us. So we're having to catch up to some point.
I see. Okay, thanks.
So anyway,
Right.
that's what that is. Yes.
One quick question. You talked about upsizing the line to delivery to their pump station and so forth.
That's right.
we are collecting impact fees that would be used to upsize that line. Since
No.
the residents, we are not.
No,
So let me ask you a question. Then the residents bought into the line and paid the base price that were here at the time. And now every time you sell a water connection or hook a house on, you have diminished the capacity of the outgoing line.
that's correct.
And so therefore, would there not be an impact that would be projected at some point in time to upsize that line?
Yes.
And-
And when we finish our sewer master plan, it will include a impact analysis and that we could then take to an impact fee. And that is in the process, but at this point, we don't have that.
Wow.
But that is in the plan.
That is in the plan.
And we've looked at that in previous years, Brent, but you have to use those impact fees within 6 years. And we, as you can see, we're still looking at having a project come up. So we didn't have a 6-year window
Okay.
to start charging on.
Okay. So what is the percent full of the capacity of our line going out of town? Are we within with what's going on?
That's being studied with our master plan. Since we're looking at getting a full-fledged master plan on the sewer, that will help answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
And we actually, if you remember, we are charging a wastewater treatment impact fee that Logan had us implement, that we charge, and then we pay that directly to Logan, that wastewater impact fee. So we
But
show
that
the
is-
revenue coming in and revenue going out.
Right, that is for their plant, not for
Yes.
part of the collection and not for the line between us.
Right.
So
Right.
that
I
is just
understand
for that plant.
that plant. Yes, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
This one I would say is a strong recommendation. We need to do something because we continue to lose ground on it if we don't. All right, stormwater. So stormwater, at this point, the struggle with stormwater and somewhat with sewer, but especially with stormwater, we are working on a master plan which will give us a capital improvement plan for our sewer. We don't currently we have a guide for our stormwater and some of the areas, but we don't have a capital improvement plan for it. And so we don't have a lot of specific projects that we would be working on. We have some in the process and some of the budget that we would look at for this, replacing some culverts. I think we had a few that we talked about on 100 East and 200 North, I think in that area. Rob can correct me if I'm wrong in that general vicinity. So at this point, it is just looking, this one's a little different as well. It's kind of showing what do others do, where are we at in comparison? And this rate hasn't been adjusted since August of 2017. So we have seen a decrease in our net position. So our revenue is lowering. I don't know that I put that in. So we have seen a revenue decline, net position decline from 2017 to 2020. So at this point, we are seeing either our costs are going up and our revenue isn't keeping up with that amount. So we are losing ground in that range between where we were in 2017 and where we are in 2020. So that kind of gives an idea. Now we did have, it spiked and came down, so it's not linear, but it is trending that way. So anyway, this would have a rate increase of approximately 6%. One shows a little bit market lower, but it would be proposing a market rate of 6%. You could also consider, and I didn't put it on here, you could also consider, you know, if you have a overhead, but at this point, it would be a 6%. And what we're trying to do is come back to level this where we've lost ground. Because if we don't do something and this continues to fall, we'll be in the negative, and then we'll be forced to have an increase. So we can wait, but the longer we wait, the more that it will become a pressing issue. So anyway, and then once we have a stormwater capital improvement plan, then we would come back in and say, okay, well, what are the full list of projects for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and how do we fund to do those? That may facilitate more of an increase at some future date, but this is just kind of looking at a market situation and balancing where our net position has been.
And would we get that information through a water master plan?
No, not through a water master plan, because a stormwater plan would be a separate master plan. We would, well, a stormwater master plan, but not the culinary water master plan.
Okay, so they're separate.
They're separate, yes.
Ryan, what was
Yes.
the $50,000 project in 2020?
I was gonna look that up, but Rob, do you know?
We did the vineyard upsizing from 3rd East down to the creek. And then we also did the whole project of connecting all the storm water from 3rd East up to about 4th East by the church on 5th North, Spring Creek Parkway.
And because we don't have a master plan, we don't collect any impact fees to upsize things like that.
It's correct. We don't have an impact fee for stormwater.
We do have a lot of projects I see coming down the pipeline when it comes to stormwater. I would say that we're a bit behind on fees, or at least planning for some upgrade projects in the stormwater fields.
So Rob, would you, what's your relationship of impact fees versus charging the existing residential, multifamily, and so forth? Do we need to look at that master plan quickly? Is it going to be because of new growth, or is it going to be because of what we've got existing in town?
Both. A master plan would be great. I just don't think it's quite as priority up high on the priority scale as some of these other plans that we're working on, but it needs to get done for sure.
Well, I'm wondering if it needs to be done simultaneously. We don't have to wait till one's done to start another one. If we don't have the ability to collect, I mean, I look at where you just talked about upgrading. I mean, we're looking at, to me, a very good use of impact fees that the city forked out of its coffers.
The 6-year thing has been a hiccup in a lot of these situations. When it's hard to foresee how much growth and how fast it's going to come, you don't want to have impact fees end up having to be returned. And so it can be a bit tricky, impact fees can.
Well, I understand that. That area, Little Baldy, has grown very fast. And some of our areas, I don't know. I'm just thinking, I just hate to see there, in my opinion, are the residents of Providence have to pay for new growth. That's what I'm concerned about right there.
That's true, but they also, once they're a resident, they have to pay for this too. So there is some balance to that as they're a resident, it's true, new growth is taken care of, but then they do pay. So they are adding into the project, the next project, once they're a resident and once they're here. But you're right. So this one, I would say, are talking about master plans, water is our next one that we have, and cemetery. Those are the two that are coming up after. We've just finished one. We don't want to overwhelm both the staff and council in having too many at a time. I've kind of balanced 2 to 3 at a time. And so we're working towards it for sure. So we realize the need. We're trying to get some of the other ones that are more pressing, like Rob talked about, because we think that there are some more pressing ones we need to eat and swallow, but we're eating this elephant. We're going to get through it.
Just don't put them all on one agenda tonight on the city council meeting if you can.
Exactly my point. Thank you, Josh. That is, if I, can you imagine if I had 3 more?
I second that, Josh.
So don't add too many, don't add too many for us to all be doing at the same time, because that's a lot. That was a lot. So I'm gonna work to spread that out so we don't have that. All right. So those 3 are individual funds, and so they should fund themselves, and so they're independent of the general fund. So these 3, as part of the cafeteria, just kind of telling you the flavor, these 3 are not associated with the property tax that I talked about. These 3 are independent because they are independent business unit funds. So that's why I bring them up separate. Now I'm going to start into a different part of the cafeteria. We were on our main course. Now we're into something else. So these ones, the next 3 are kind of similar in their approach. So what I've done is I've taken the revenue and I've simplified. I've just taken the revenue, direct cost revenue, and direct expense. So in sanitation, this is our garbage. So we collect this much from our residents, and we pay Logan, and we pay. So at that point, we haven't been covering our costs of garbage. Now, keep in mind, there is some that I would say some of this is garbages we provide as services. If we provide it up the canyon, we don't have a person to bill for that, but it's a good service to provide for residents. We provide it in parks. We provide it in other places. We utilize it as a city as well. So to keep in mind, this may be a bit of a change in approach from what had previously been done as rates. That's not to say the previous approach was right or wrong. This is just a different approach. So as we take this approach of saying what we collect versus what we pay for sanitation, we aren't collecting the amount that would be. So if we look at that, on average, we would need to raise the rate by 6%. This raises it across the board on all the different ones. So I didn't get into cost per can or any of those specifics. I took it on a high level and just took it and said, what's the revenue? What's the expense? Because then we would proportionally increase the others. So it is a 6%. So over the 9 years, the sanitation is down by, we've paid $193,000 over what we've collected over the past 9 years. We may expect the administrative costs to run it, so that indirect expenses, not the direct expenses, but indirect, may be in the 3 to 5% range at that point. That would be billing, that would be the time spent to manage collections, maybe include some bad debt, some of those things. So the recommendation is to increase by a minimum of 6 to cover our direct costs, and to consider as a possibility to increase to 9, which would cover both the direct and the 3% administrative costs. Questions on sanitation?
I'm just you may not have the answer to this, but I'm just wondering why between 18 and 19, why the close to $100,000 increase in 1 year there in expenses.
I don't
That-
know at that point.
Logan Environmental and Cache County changed some rates in that time. So
It-
the way we've looked at these in the past have been a pass-through, and we've utilized just general fund money, property tax and stuff to take care of the city's personal garbage expenses. Ryan's proposing that instead of doing just the pass-through, we add the administrative costs, and we also spread out, instead of taking it out of property tax revenue, we spread it out and charge it through the sanitation. So everybody that has a black or a blue, I can't remember, are they both black, the smaller and the larger ones? But anyway, everybody that has a garbage can will pay a little bit towards all of the city, like Ryan said, the garbage cans in the parks and everything like that. But a couple of years ago, Logan City and Cache County went through and did their rates on sanitation. And we had to put those increases through.
So
Thank you for that.
does Logan make a profit from us on all of these services that they provide?
Probably,
Depends on who you ask.
depends on who you ask.
My answer is yes. So they charge an 8% administrative fee,
Oh,
and they say it covers their overhead to run the city. So they have an overhead rate that they apply, and so they capture the cost of various support departments like human resources. So they say a portion of the human resources staff support different departments throughout the city, including the services they provide by contract to other Cache Valley cities. And the other cities say Logan makes a profit. Logan says we are entitled to charge an administrative fee in all our enterprise funds, including sanitation. They accumulate this fee, and at the end of the year, they hold a public hearing and they transfer it to their general fund. And the last year I recall was 2019. It was about $8 million. And that's all of the that's all of the funds.
so like their sewer, there's, and so all of the profit they're putting in the category of administrative fees? Are they sneaking profit in other places too?
Well, wastewater, solid waste, recycle, green waste. Did I miss anything?
I don't know, it's a lot.
Well, and it's just, we've tied everything, we're just so dang dependent on Logan, but it's tricky to break away, I guess.
Yeah, you're kind of going off subject, Carrie, but I'll just, my opinion in one sentence. I think Cache County over the years has dropped the ball, and the leadership that should have been there wasn't. I'll bet Brent's been around here a long time. I'll bet Brent would have an opinion on that as well.
Yeah, you see that Taj Mahal that got built down there? Yeah, I'm concerned about some of that stuff.
I believe administrative costs is in the 3 to 5%. If they're charging more than that, they're probably covering more expenses than I would think would be maybe in line with my way of taking it. But they have their own books and they have to manage it themselves and figure it out. But that's what I'm looking at here is not a 9%, but a minimal amount to cover. And we wouldn't transfer this because this is part of our general fund. So this isn't a transfer. This is just part of it. It would cover Tara's time in billing and collecting and some of those kind of things. I don't really even look at human resource because I don't think that allocates out. But anyway.
Ryan, so you're saying though in the expenses I'm looking at now, you're loading the pass-through expenses with additional 3% for Providence administrative costs. Is that correct?
At this point, this is budget, and these are actual. I haven't projected these into the budget because I want to know what you want to do for rates before I build the coming budget.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about those expenses I'm looking at there. What does that constitute? Is that all pass-through, or are there Providence City administrative costs in there?
They're direct costs, so they are all sanitation. This is what we pay Logan City. What is included other than the pass-through is the garbages that we would have.
Understood.
Yeah. But there's no administrative
consider
cost
that
in this.
kind of de minimis. I mean, those are basic city trash services. There's some in there.
Yeah, at that point, an average of 20 to 30,000 a year.
Oh, that's that number. That's that net number.
This is well, it's not all of it, but it represents some of that. I mean, it can be somewhat de minimis, but we have, what do we have? 12 parks. We have,
Well,
anyway.
We've got 11 parks in Jay's Well. So.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I still want to see it a park someday, but we'll see. We'll see if that works. I'll do what you guys want. But this is not, these expenses are not including administration. These are direct sanitation expenses.
Great.
So this is what we would be paying along.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions on sanitation before I go to recycle? I'm going to go. All right, recycle is about the same thing. Here is the net change. So in recycle, we don't have a direct pass-through. We have a revenue, and then our expenses. We are having a little bit to be able to cover our administrative fees between that 3% and 5%. I have no recommendation for any increase in the recycle. If you wanted to, which is probably a no, but you could considering an annual increases of cost of living. That's not what I'm proposing, but just plant a seed that however you want to do it, I'm on board with what you want, but I'm not proposing an increase or change to recycle. Any questions on recycle? I'm going to take that as a no because I think that was an easy one. Green waste. So this is the revenue that we have, the expenses, and we look overall, generally speaking, we're right close to that break even. In 19 we lost, 20 we're right at break even, 21. What I'm looking at is again, if I spelled it right. You probably want to be considering in the 3 to 5%. So at this point, we're a little bit of a loss here. The last 2 years have been really close to break even. So you might recommend increasing it so that we have a break even and have a buffer for that administrative cost. Not a big deal, but just wanted to show and reflect that we had reviewed green waste. I assume that some of the other ones are bigger deals and bigger adjustments than this one, but you can kind of see where we've been and where we're going. Any questions on green waste? Oh, yeah, Mayor does, sorry.
Scarlett, I got a question on this. Scarlett?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, I have a question on this. Is this our green waste, not the bins, but the cans?
This is the curbside pickup, but some of the can charge is included in this. If we have an extra dump or something that is specific to green waste, a little bit of that is included, but for the most part, this is resident curbside recycling, or I mean green waste, resident curbside green waste.
Just telling me words that are misspelled.
Question for you.
I realize I have a few misspelled words. Those that are watching, I'm sorry. Wasn't my intent, but I'm just trying to kind of give an overview of the idea. So please forgive my misspellings. I never aced spelling. I was the top math student, but I was not the top spelling student. I will confess. I'll put it on the record. I'm not the best of speller. But give me a math equation and I'm pretty good at it. All right, sorry. Go ahead. Who was asking a question?
Okay, that was me. Okay, you want a math question? The sine of X over N always equals 6. Figure that one out.
I like it.
Cancel the ends out. SIX equals 6 always. Okay, go back to my question.
Okay.
All right, so my question is this. We then are going to also be charged $1 per household for the bins up at the park. Is that correct?
That is correct, that the county has passed an increase there, and at some point we'll need to pass that on.
And
I assume
will that be year round or only the months of collection?
Or do you know that? I thought it was year round, but I will defer to Mayor. He's saying it's year round. I think I have a green waste can and I'm charged year round for it, even though they only pick up a few months a year.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay. All right, so that's the we've gone through the main course, that's whatever else, the salad, the side dishes. So here's the dessert. These ones should be easy. I believe the next two should be easy ones. So what we have is we have a disconnect. We've only had one application. We don't expect very many, so this shouldn't affect very many people. But we want to discourage it at least somewhat, or at least have an idea. Currently, we charge $100 to apply for a disconnect. This is somebody that de-annexes, as we oftentimes call it. So what we've done is we've said, okay, well, what does it cost? And we went through and did an evaluation of cost. And then we have, well, what does it affect? Well, we lose the property tax income. Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna. Kathleen's gonna correct my spelling, so you just forgive me on all of those. So we increase the we lose revenue from property tax. We lose revenue from B&C road funds. We lose revenue from the sales tax by population. We have infrastructure in the ground, oftentimes in front of these that we've invested in. And if they disconnect, then we lose the value of what we've invested into that infrastructure because they take it back, sometimes that road, some of those things. So we lose a significant amount. Recommendations. I say we at least raise the rate to $800, plus we add to that the present value of 10 years of the city's property tax on their parcel. So we'll take 10 years worth, instead of projecting out what it'll be, we just take 10 years worth of the property tax and we say, all right, you pay us that. If you get approved for a disconnect, then we keep it. If you get rejected, we'll give that back to you. So as a refundable, if disconnect is denied, then they could get it back. If disconnect is approved, then we get 10 years worth of the property tax that they would have paid the city in order to allow them out. I would add one more thing. In Roosevelt, we raised it from $100 to $10,000 because we wanted to discourage disconnects. So just to give you an idea, I think at this point, this covers our cost and our losses that we would proceed, that we would have on that. So anyway, I hope this is a dessert and one that won't get very many people riled, because we just don't expect many people to come and do this. It's rare, extremely rare. So, all right. I don't hear any questions. I'll go on to the next one that I think is still dessert. A little more common, but still dessert. So what we've had since I've been here, we've had 5 applications for appeals or variances. I believe that's correct. Scarlett, you chime in if I make a mistake, always go ahead and feel free to chime in.
I don't
But I
think we've had an appeal, Ryan, but we have had 5 variance requests.
5 variances, and I lumped these together because it's the same group and committee. So I should clarify that. You're right. So this is appeal variance. This is the application for either of those. So at that point, we take it, we receive it, we review it. You know, we have a number that review it, and then we have a meeting, and then we have the attorney write up the findings. And if we all spend an hour in each of the phases, which is common, not unheard of, and that's kind of reality based on what we've seen. Some have gone longer, but that's kind of what we've seen it. So we've seen it about $1,000 and $1,040. The current rate to apply is $100. So at this point, the recommendation or the suggestion is to raise the application fee to $1,000. This would, we would expect that $1,000 would cover the cost of hearing the appeal. And if it's the difference between $100 and $1,000, if you just want to try something out, say, oh, you know what, it's only $100. I'll go ahead and apply and test out and see if I can get the variance. At $1,000, because that's where our cost is going to be closer to, we're saying if a variance is appropriate, then and they're looking at it, it's probably going to be affecting their house, whether they can build it or not. There's a lot bigger things that are being affected than what the cost of it would be, but this would reflect that so that they're paying approximately the same as what the cost would be. So it's a cost recovery kind of a thing.
Ryan, can I chat really quick just about why we have 2 attorneys? You know, if the appeal authority, they are the last step before district court. And so whether it's an appeal of a land use decision or whether it's a variance request, the next step isn't to city council, the next step would be to district court. So we need to make sure that in our findings are represented in a way that they can, that they can stand up to a district court challenge. In order to do that, currently we have used Chad as the city attorney that represents the land use side of things, and Craig Smith as the city attorney that advises the appeal authority. Because it wouldn't be very good for Chad to have to advise me as the land use person and Randy Simmons as the appeal director. That same attorney advising both sides wouldn't work. So we've had to have 2 attorneys. That's why we have 2 attorneys. It's to make sure that if someone does really feel like the city has shown them an injustice and they want to go further, we will be prepared. And we have had a couple, I don't think we've had a variance taken to district court, but over the time, and it's been the whole time, it's been like 15, 20 years, we've only had a couple of appeals that have gone on to court, but it has happened. And having those findings done by our attorney in that meeting has really helped the city's case when it went to district court. That's the reason for the 2 attorneys.
Thank you for that clarification.
So when you said there's been 5, is that 5 in the last year?
Yes.
And is that typical?
No.
No,
I think some of them came because it only cost them $100.
Yeah, so they're like, let's just try this.
Sure.
Makes sense. And then it's just subsidized by the rest of the taxpayers.
Correct. Correct.
I'm strongly in favor of us totally passing the costs of appeals and variance and the other one that you said on to those who are asking for it. I don't see any reason why the city should bear really any cost to disconnect, or that it really needs to be borne by those who are seeking it for whatever reason they might seek it. And another question, I guess we can't piecemeal approve things here, but I'd sure like to make a motion that we approve these two and then deal with the others, but we probably can't. So.
Yeah, this is a cafeteria. This is a cafeteria.
So what we can do is get through all these and we can go back over them. We can amend the motion, which was made by Josh. And we can say, let's pick appeals, disconnect, whatever. Let's approve those for now. And we're going to set however many aside and continue the discussion on those and ask Ryan to do some more research or however we want to approach it. But that we can make note of appeals, disconnect, and whatever else we're okay with. And then we get to the end and we can ask Josh to amend his motion on however many of these we pick, just like Ryan said, a cafeteria.
It would be my recommendation that these two we check to include as they are written, for sure.
And this appeals and variance, those are two separate fees to the same place, and we're proposing to be same rates. So anyway, just as you talk, it's variance, appeals, and then when we had our disconnect. So then I'll go to the encroachment. And this is a work in progress, so I haven't really completed it, but just to kind of give you an idea of where I'm headed, is there is a cost for repairing a section of road. If somebody comes in, digs into the road and doesn't fix it, we want to be able to cost recovery, and we want to have a cost for paying for the chip seal that we'll have to have. Now, we won't chip seal every little patch, but at least it offsets our cost when we do come and chip seal or crack seal or HA5. I use the word chip seal, but I would actually be better off to say when we do a routine maintenance on it, we would want to recover that cost. So this is kind of a work in progress. I'm working on it, and I'll work with Rob a little bit more in where we go and what makes sense. So that takes us back to the property tax. And this sheet is just all the different rates and the costs. So at that point, I have given you a whole cafeteria to digest and enjoy. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
So Ryan, I took and just ran some numbers on the basic thing as we've been going through this, and all the fees except we're not talking disconnect, appeals, variance, not talking recycle and so forth, just a basic household 1-inch meter, so forth. We're talking about an $87.48 increase annually at the rate being proposed. Now, I
don't think that sounds right.
Okay, let's break it down.
25 cents a month.
So
Pardon me. Let's break it down.
let's break it down, because that's a good thing to look at. So if we raise this one and we just minus the current rate,
So it's 93 cents you're raising it.
so it's 93 cents we're raising there.
Okay. The sewer
So-
is $3.34. And
So equals this, and I'm just gonna show. So that's $3.34, okay?
the next one, the stormwater is at 25 cents.
Okay, 25 cents.
Right. The next one down the list is sanitation. If you went to the 9%, you're looking at $1.37.
$1.37.
Okay, and then your last one on the tail end there, which is green waste, you're looking at another 40 cents. And the way I figured that up, that's $6.29.
Okay.
What, did we skip recycle?
Recycle's free,
Okay.
no increase there.
No increase, no change to that one.
So $6.29 times 12. Okay. Then you add $12. That's comes out to me $75.48. Then you add $12 for a green waste bin, which is passed on to us.
$12 for green waste.
That comes up to $87.48 in my calculations.
Okay. Now I see where you're going now.
Yeah,
I was
so
thinking you were talking on a monthly basis and I was choking. I thought, no, that's not right.
I would
But
have.
yeah, on a yearly basis, we're talking all the increases at the maximum rates. We're talking, yeah, we're talking in that. Now, the green waste is not something I proposed nor championed. So that's not on, I'm not coming with that one, but you're right. You're right. That is one that has been passed by the county, and we'll have to pass it on.
So basically right now, and now if we add on a franchise fee. Now, a franchise fee, we're talking 58,000 or 53,000. And we're gonna get back we're gonna get back 53,000, but we're gonna add on 58,000 for a franchise fee. And
Yeah,
now,
I didn't cover that one because that was the next agenda item, but you're right. You saw where I was and you got my number. That's fine. That's fair.
so
You're right.
we're dealing with now, I don't know how many residents we got. How many we got? 6,000, 7,000, 8,000?
We've got 8,000 residents approximately,
So divide 8 into
or 8,000 people, not residences, but
households.
so we have 2,700 households approximately.
Divide that into 58, whatever, 5,800,000. Okay, now we add that.
Now, that's not going to be all paid by residents. That's going to be paid
Oh,
somewhat
you're right.
by commercial and so businesses, churches, nonprofits. It's going to be spread out from those. So not all that is resident.
But maybe 80%. So if you take 80%, 58,000, and then you divide that by your 2,700 households. So that's your number that you're proposing, that we're proposing to put out to the citizens. So we're talking $87. We're talking here, and we can talk on a monthly basis or we can talk on an annual basis, but it makes no difference. But and I don't know what that number came out to be at anybody. So you're looking at
About 110 total per year.
for $110 total per year. Then we're at now, and I like your proposal, Ryan, and the mayor suggested that we possibly look at not tacking on the $10 fee for fiber optics. But again, if we didn't tack that on, great. If we tack that on, that's another $10 a month. So now we're looking at $230 a year that we're looking at proposing to pass on to the residents in the upcoming year. My thoughts.
You have been
Brett,
keeping
that was
track. It's good.
fantastic. Like watching a episode of Matlock or something and having you lay out the case.
Yeah. I'm no Perry Mason, I'll tell you that.
I think we just need to get our priorities. I mean, I certainly don't want to tack on those kind of prices right now or add that to someone's budget. But I mean, I want to be wise. So Ryan, if you were to if you're the one picking from our cafeteria tonight, what do you think is the most important? And I do agree with Brent that the things, those disconnect fees and those variance fees, those should be already adjusted. But in regards to the city bill, Ryan, if we were to pick, you know, because right now it looks like $7.29, that includes the green waste a month. I mean, if we were to divide that down to $2 or $3 a month right now.
I think I see where Brent's coming. I feel the same way. I'd like to see, I'd like to see at least a 25 to 40% reduction in that number across the board. But I also, Christina, you brought up something earlier that I would like to start as a bit of a precedent, and that's, that we see some modest increases in each of these areas, rather than go years without an increase. Even if that's 0.5% here, 1% there, that we start to slowly work into the habit of having an actual pass or cost of living adjustment to each of these. But and just as we look here on this graph with property taxes, I remember when that happened, that was discouraging when we had property taxes going up that much in 1 year. And I think what we're looking at with these rate changes is a significant increase as well, even though I know that your strategy is to slowly bring those is to raise the fees while bringing the property taxes down.
I'm not in favor of saying no to any increase. But again, maybe we project it over a couple of years or something like that, or 3 years or something like that to get where we're going. Yes. And I know it's going to be a moving target, but hopefully we can analyze it from year to year and get there. It's just, it is a hard time. There are people out of work. There are people struggling. And I checked with Providence Elementary. We got kids receiving breakfast because they don't get breakfast at home for whatever reason it may be. They don't get breakfast at home, but some of it, I'm sure, maybe is a question whether the family can afford all the things they're having to afford. I just want to be more moderate in our assessment of the fees and increase over a period of time versus jump into it with our boots on and pull our boots up and go for it.
One thing I might throw out there on the water and the stormwater, we have a little bit of control on what we spend, but on the sewer rates, the sanitation, the recycle, the green waste, that rate from Logan City on the treatment, I really feel like when you're looking at increases, we ought to keep up at least with what we're being billed that's out of our control. That's where we've kind of fallen before.
I feel the same way, Scarlett. I feel that way.
So to kind of break this back, I think it does sound like some on a total. It does. I agree to that. So if you have the $204.84 for the year, you divide that back by the 12. If you take out the fiber, you're talking $7 a month as an increase. And that's all in if everything goes. So the question is which ones? I don't think you're wise to continue to let your costs of sewer, just like Scarlett mentioned, I don't think you're wise to let your cost of sewer to continue to lower, or your cost of sewer to continue to rise and not pass that cost on. I think that you've got to be passing on this 10% increase a year for that one. And that's a substantial amount. The 9% is a substantial figure. That's your $3.34. That is about half of that $7 in the fees I've proposed. I would say that's one. So if I had a choice, I would say sewer is probably the number one that you should raise, because it is a cost that is raising to you, and you should be passing it along. It is all because of Logan. That is what it is. Logan's charging it, we got to pass it on. I would say if water's not one, I wouldn't raise this, but I might raise this one. So, and if you don't feel comfortable raising any of the others, I might just raise this one to get closer to the 90s, the average 96 cents, or at least closer to the 91 that we're seeing. That's what I would recommend if we had one on that one. Stormwater, I think we could wait and wait till we have a master plan. But that's one that it's not a big amount. And sanitation, I would approach this as trying to find a way to break even. Even if you increase only 3% to get you closer, I would say these are real costs, and they if you don't pay for it through a rate, you pay for it through property tax, but you'll pay it either way. Recycle, I'd leave alone. Like I said, green waste, I think we could leave that alone. We're already going to see a rate increase from somewhere else. That's my take.
Those that we're not breaking even on, ultimately the taxpayers are paying for them one way or the other. They're just not getting an even split with the nonprofits and others. So to me, it makes sense to add those and skip the ones that we're pretty close to breaking even on.
And that would be sanitation, recycle, we're almost there. We're above. Green waste, we're breaking even. So that's really sanitation you're talking about on that one. Is that right?
And sewer.
We have another one. Was that way?
Sewer.
I think that was it.
So I would vote in favor of doing as you recommend with the sanitation and sewer.
So I'm trying to create a.
Can I ask, will that $1 be automatically added to the green waste that we approved previously?
No, well, I don't think so. If we have a rate, we get it. We probably need to adopt that rate when it comes to us, that we'd pass it through. I think we approved before it went, but I don't know that we raised a rate for that. Scarlett, maybe you can weigh in. Can we just pass that along?
The county, since the county sent that out and they sent that letter out, I think we did pass that along, but I can't remember if we included that we were going to do that. I just don't remember, but I do think we passed it. I think we sent the letter out and said the county's increasing the rate. We've got to charge what they're charging.
Ryan, while we're talking about this sanitation, are you thinking 3%, which would be 45 cents increase versus what we were looking at $1.37?
I'm willing to take it. I think we ought to get it working towards getting closer. It's really up to the council what you want to do. But at that point, if you're not collecting it from your residents, you're subsidizing it with property tax.
That's $4.79. And then if we pass the other dollar on, we're looking at $5.79 over 12 months. That's a, $67, $68 a year increase. That is, I think, palatable versus what we were talking. And I don't know where the franchise tax thing's going, but I'm just talking these rates here right now. I think that's more palatable than going all out on all of them right now.
So if I get it right on yours, you're saying appeal, variance, disconnect, sanitation at 3%, and the sewer at the stated, which is about 9%. Is
Yes.
that right? So
Yes,
those are the ones you're looking at.
that's my opinion. I'll let the council weigh in. That's my opinion.
And
I
the
agree
one,
100% with that.
Ryan, the $1 on the green waste, I think. Did you say that?
Oh, and the $1 on the green waste to pass through.
That'll have to be, we can't not pay that. I mean, not, that, they gotta pass that through. That belongs to everybody.
Okay, so that would be, we would implement that. And have they started charging it? When do they start? I don't know when that kicks in.
I don't recall, Scarlett.
I
When
don't recall if they've started. I know Tara was working with the county on that when it would start, but I don't recall if it starts next month or I think it starts relatively soon, but I don't recall when.
Okay,
For
So
some
this
reason,
would include
April
that.
comes out in my mind.
what's that, Rob?
For some reason, April sticks out on that for when they're gonna begin that charge, which is when they start beginning the green waste pickups at the sites.
Okay,
And I think these other ones we can look at as we're working on master plans and chunk away a little more. If, you know, we're able to lower the taxes, then we can shift the fees.
Are you ready for a motion?
So
I'm
let's-
ready to listen to Josh amend his motion.
Yeah, can we recap the ones that we decided we're gonna accept? And which ones we're gonna wait? So that's part of the motion. What do we have?
Well, Here's what I'm hearing. If I was going to amend this, and I'm sure I'll make a mistake here, so
Go
be
ahead.
kind and correct me. But I'd heard that it seems like there's consensus on sanitation and sewer and passing and approving the rates as is, since those are costs that are being borne by Logan City. Recycling, no change. Approving our dessert options, disconnection and appeals and variants, and making modest change on water rate to bring the 85 cents up to 91 cents on the base level tier, so that we're at least covering our costs. And then I missed stormwater. Is there consensus on that?
Set that aside.
I think we can set and wait on that. I would
And wait
propose
on
that,
that.
I would propose that we wait.
Wait, so
And-
does
and-
that, I mean, there's a lot of tabs open there, but if I moved that, does that cover how people are feeling?
So if I recoup, we go from 75 to 85. We're keeping the $1.50 for the rest of the rates, is what I've heard. And sewer, we're going at the stated amounts. Storm, we're not doing anything. Sanitation, we're doing 3% because we're only doing half of the proposed.
Okay, I missed that. Yep.
At least that's what I thought we were talking about. Recycle, nothing. Green waste, nothing. Disconnect to the $800 and the 10-year. The appeals at 1,000 and the variance at 1,000. Is that what you
And
are?
I have a personal
I
question.
thought we
is-
were adding $1 on the green waste.
Oh,
for the
and $1
pass-through.
under the green waste, yes.
Yeah, the only one I had question on was why we were cutting the sanitation in half. Does we're going to subsidize that more? Is that the thought?
I thought we were going to 3% on sanitation rather than the 6. Yeah, we're cutting it in half.
But we're subsidizing that. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, but it basically slows our.
We're just going to try to ramp it up slower. Okay.
That's what I think we were, that's what I think Brent was talking about. So,
And Brent, you kind of say you feel like that sits at the average, at least residential resident, somewhere in the $65, $70 range or something. Is that what you?
I think that's what we came to the conclusion of, is that would put it in this $60, $75, $60 to $70 range. For an annual, that's $5 for what we're talking about, the raising the rates. We understand that we do have to have some increase, but again, to jump, like if we took it all, it's just too big of a step at one time. Take
Yeah.
some baby steps, get us through it, and make it a little bit more palatable to people. It's a hard time for people.
Yeah. So Ryan, or Mayor, I'd like to amend my motion if you'd allow it.
Go ahead, Josh.
All right, Ryan, would you follow along me on tabs here so I make sure I get it right
Yep,
once
I'll
more?
start on the tabs.
Let's start on the appetizers. Okay. So I amend my motion that we raise our rate on water for the 10,001 to 50,000 gallon units from 75 cents to 85 cents. That we approve the suggested sewer increases as they were proposed in the plan, which is Ryan, am I reading that right? 9% across the board.
9%. There are some that are 6 and 8.
Oh,
but-
excuse me. Just as we read there, as proposed on the stormwater, that we make no change to stormwater fee changes. That on sanitation, we raise sorry, there's a bit of a lag there. We raise the rates 3%. We make no change to the recycling fee. We add $1 to the green waste fee per resident, and we approve the proposed fee changes for disconnection and appeals to pass the full cost of those services onto the applicant.
Good job, Josh.
Yep,
Yeah, well done.
Ryan, for the prompts.
everybody good on that? I need a second.
I'll second it.
Amended motion from Councilman Paulson and a second from Councilman Smith. Further questions, comment, discussion? Hearing none, can I call for a vote? All in favor of the amended motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing no nays, it passes unanimously. Okay, let me give you it's just after 8 o'clock. We've got several other items here. What does the council want to do?
Keep going.
Keep going, okay.
Get it done.
I wouldn't be opposed to setting a time limit though at this point for the next agenda item and or for when we're going to end the evening.
Okay.
I think you've preempted my thing here for the next agenda item. But if I can start, I'm proposing that we increase and receive the increase for the energy tax that it's proposed in that resolution. It accounts for approximately 58 to 60,000. That's what we're looking at. And then I would, in my proposal to this, is that we allow the rate to come down this year, and we increase the energy rate, and those two would be projected to be almost a break even between that happening. And I would propose we do that with the tax levy, item number 2 on the agenda. That's what I would propose we do for those, so that this makes it a fairly approximately wash. It does give us, having an energy and use tax does charge to those that don't pay property tax. And so it would increase that and lower the burden. So this is, I know Brent kind of preempted and found my little piece here that I was going to propose, but this would kind of make it a net change, so that we're not making a big difference. So this isn't an extra burden. So I know we've kind of talked about this in the realm of fiber. It does help us with our bonding capacities if we choose to go that way. But bigger picture is, this is one I think is really an imbalance. We should raise the rate, lower the property tax, and balance that. And this is where that balance is at, is what my proposal is. Questions?
Council, any questions on that?
I'm going to risk sounding really stupid, but I did not follow that.
Okay.
All
So
right.
I don't even know where to start with questions.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So if we,
Brian?
yeah,
Before you restate that explanation, for the record, Mayor, could you explain that we're on what agenda item we're on? I think we just kind of transitioned
sorry.
right into it.
Right.
sorry, I should have been more patient. I'm sorry.
So the last comment I made was about the time. Josh raised a question and Ryan said, well, that segues into the next agenda item. So that's where we were. So agenda item number 2, the legislative item, proposed amendment to Providence City Code 3-2A-3 tax levied and 3-2B-3 tax levied, ordinance number 2021-002. Providence City Council will consider and may take action on an ordinance amending the Providence City Code 3-2A-3 tax levied, increasing the municipal energy tax on every sale or use of taxable energy made within the city from 5% to 6%, and 3-2B-3 a tax levied, increasing the municipal energy tax on every sale or use of taxable energy made within the city limits from 4 to 6%. Okay. So someone might have a question about what each of these parts of the city code represent. Just an outline. Ryan, can you do that for us?
Ryan, I guess this is why I usually have you go through things with me before city council meeting.
It is the city code. I don't know whether you'll be able to see if I pull it up. If I pull it over top, do you see that? Do you see the code?
I don't see it. No, I'm
Okay.
still seeing your
No.
spreadsheet.
All right. I think I need to stop sharing and share the other way. So
what's 2A and what's 2B? One of them is what? Electricity?
one is electricity, one is gas.
That is gas. Okay.
Taxable energy. What? So electricity, I believe, is the 6 currently, and gas is the 4. Is that correct, Scarlett?
Yeah, yes, the electricity is currently 5%, and we're recommending going up to 6%, which is what is allowed by state code. And then the second one is for gas, and it's currently 4%, and we're recommending going to the 6%. The state code looks at taxable energy or municipal energy sales and use tax. They don't distinguish in the state code between electricity and gas. When we did this a long time ago, that council chose to do that. And the way the state code reads now, it's just one item in the state code, municipal energy sales and use tax, with a cap of 6%.
Right.
Brian, and the change, I'm not understand why the proposal for the change. Why are you proposing this?
I
So-
understand it.
Okay.
You can go, Ryan.
No, I'm happy to have whoever wants to.
It has a lot to do with the same thing with the fees, because these are people who charge, churches and schools and everybody else, they pay for gas and electricity, but they don't pay property taxes. So if it's almost a net change, the difference is like $4,700 between the two. Divide that over 2,700 residents. That's about $2 a year different than what's being paid currently. But I think residents would actually end up paying less because some of these nonprofits are going to start paying into that instead of just the residents. Did I get that right, Ryan?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It is an imbalance because we are subsidizing those that don't pay property tax with this, but all entities pay because they use gas and electricity.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm ready to, just don't want to, I mean, for me, that's an easy one. We can make a motion and move forward, but I don't know if other people feel the same way.
Yeah, I got it. Roger.
Ryan, I have one more question,
Yes.
if I may. When we impose this franchise tax on the utilities, will this put us ultimately in the bonding position we need to be in order for fiber optics? Or will there be an additional amount of money that needs to be put up to win favor with the bonding company to be able to go for what fiber optics is?
This we can borrow against this increase towards the fiber if we choose to do that. So if we do this, it does have that benefit. It's not necessarily the only reason to do it, because I believe that the imbalance is the better reason to do it, but it does give us additional bonding capacity that we could bond. It is expected that we could bond the entire project for fiber if this does pass. If it doesn't pass, it would require the city to put in $1 million to $1.5 million into the fiber project.
Does the city have reserves enough to, and my point is, down the road, if we're going to sell fiber optics, does it look better if the city is a partner with the residents in getting fiber optics into the community if it's that important for the commercial areas and stuff like that? Is it important that the city invest with the residents, or is it only the residents that need to foot the, and eventually people will buy into it. I understand that, but the residents for the most part now are upfronting the money because they're bonding for it.
That is a definitely good question. It should be. It's not exactly related. It is telco related to this. But that's a good question that the council will need to think about and decide. I would say at some point, maybe at a future meeting, we come back with a rate discussion on fiber and talk about, because the questions come, do we charge the $10? Do we phase it out? If we get high enough subscription, do we phase that $10 out and possibly work towards it to be free if we get enough subscription? Do we do a first year? Do we put money in and we contribute, into it to start it off? I think there's a lot of different questions on what we do. It's a definite discussion, and I think by itself it probably needs to have its own agenda and discussion. I would say that's my take. Mayor, how would you like to go?
That's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment.
So I'm ready to make a motion on item 2, if you all are. Okay, so what?
We need to, and Ryan mentioned it, we need to have a discussion about rates. We've had a bit of dialogue, and I know Ryan talked to Brent, and I sent an email out, some suggestions. Brent was talking about how much is this a year? And we said, what, $75 per resident, Brent. But we also have, and Brent brought this up at the last council meeting. We have some people that don't have internet. And someone else brought up the fact that there are people that are probably locked into a long-term arrangement with Comcast or somebody, and they're stuck for 18 months. And they're saying, you're going to charge me $10 a month for something that I can't use or don't use. So to Brent's point about the $70 or $80 increase, now we're talking about, for some people, $10 a month increase that don't have it at all. So I came back and I said to Ryan, I said, just bounce this around in your head. We talked about it last couple of days. What if the base service was free? And we thought about that, and the reason being, and Christina, you've been around long. There will be people show up, and we'll have people that'll say fixed income, and they'll say I'm getting something, I'm not getting anything, and I'm having to pay for it. How do we address those questions? I don't think we should ignore them. I think they're legitimate questions that need to be addressed, answered. I said, can we explore going with free? Maybe we just do it for a year. I think there's a small subset that will say we'll never use it. But most people, and we set this up at a 3 megabit per second rate, which is what Strata recommended. It's minimal. It allows email, a web browser, so somebody can go shopping on Amazon. But if they're going to do gaming, they're going to do video, they need Disney Channel for the kids, any of that, then they're going to have to, get beyond the basic rate.
Is this what Ryan was saying we need to put off to another agenda item? Because it seems like this is about fiber and we're talking, the agenda item is the energy tax.
Right, but what he's saying is the revenue stream for the energy tax allows us to bond for fiber.
But it doesn't make the decision of how we're going to bond for fiber. But this energy tax seems to me to be a separate decision.
I feel the same way. I feel like we're going on a tangent here that is an interesting question, but is a different discussion.
Right.
And I don't need to have this discussion to vote on this. I don't.
That's why I said we do need to have that discussion.
Yes. Okay. But
Well,
I don't.
I agree, and I recommend we vote on this, and I recommend we approve it. And I understand completely why. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, but I need a motion.
I was trying to make one.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve item 2, the proposed amendment to Providence City Code 3-2A-3 tax levied and 3-2B-3 ordinance 2021-002.
Motion from Councilmember Eck. Do I have someone else who can try to make a motion?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Kirk. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, hearing heads wave. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, measure passes. Next agenda item. Next agenda item 2021 vision and goals. Item number 3. This is a discussion. This does not require a motion. Providence City Council will discuss council goals and objectives for 2021. Council, how would you like to discuss this and approach it?
Would it be appropriate for people to share kind of what they've come up as their checklist of goals for the year and maybe discuss them briefly? One idea of how to do it. You've done this before, you might have a better way.
We can go around the table. I have some things here. Some of these are, we probably have more goals and ideas than we can tackle this year. And so at some point we'll want to compile a list from everybody and then go back over and say, let's pick from this list here and pick, let's say 5 or something like that we truly think we can accomplish.
Well, can I suggest that we just make the list tonight and
We'll
then,
make that list as we speak. You want to go first, Christina?
No, I want to go last because I'm guessing a lot of my stuff is already on y'all's agenda.
Okay. Did somebody raise their hand? Who wants to go first?
Or
Go
did
ahead,
Brent-
Brett.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. I'll give my time to Councilmember Eck, or Kirk, sorry.
It's got E's and K's in
How can you
it.
mess that
It's
up?
hard.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So the top of my list, with the completion of the Parks and Rec plan, is to identify and work toward purchasing a piece of property for a big multi-use park. I would like to keep making progress on that. We have the funds set aside that, is not going to cost people immediately. I recognize that parks do come at an expense. But I also believe that not purchasing property would come at a bigger expense. So that's on my priority list for the year. Also, this past year, I think negotiating with Spring Creek has been a big and important thing that we've done. And I would love to get that change agreement tied up, buttoned up. And then we have promised them that we would assist in an RFP for an engineering study. And so I would like to see follow through with that portion of the agreement. We haven't committed to pay for it or how we'll participate in it, but we have said that we will help them with an RFP for that engineering study. Also on my list is to move forward with fiber build out and continue to make strides with that. And the last thing is to find some youth council advisors.
What was Carrie, what was the last one?
The one before that was just to continue with the fiber
Oh,
build out. So those are the three biggies, and then more on the personal where I'm spending my time. Volunteering is with the youth council, and I think it's a great organization. Recently, in the recent years, it's been mostly run by the city staff, and as the liaison, I've told Ryan and Scarlett that I feel like it should be run by volunteers, that it's a wonderful organization. And I love that we put some budget in the youth council, but I would love to find some volunteers to help to run that. And so it's not all me. I don't want it to be staff, but I don't want it to be 100% me.
okay. Property purchase, Spring Creek, engineering study, RFP. You mentioned the change application, but that's in the state water engineer's hands. It's
Yes,
just gonna,
I know that, but
it's gonna play out and run its course. Fiber build out, that's a 3-year project. Youth council volunteers, okay.
Yep,
Got it? Okay.
that's my list.
All right, who's next? Go ahead, Brent.
Just to bring you up to speed, the voting came back after we sent ballots out to all shareholders. The ballots came back in favor of a board position for an ex officio from the city. That's all been approved, and we've accepted that. We will change our articles of incorporation and send them to the state for recording. And so Ryan will be a member of the board of directors of Providence Spring Creek, Spring Creek Water Company.
Bravo.
That's good. Good move. So now, one of my goals is we are looking at 100 South, from 200 West down to the new condos and so forth. We went through 1 year of proposing that we received some money, and that didn't work out. We're going to gear up and go through another year of proposal to get some money. Now, that happens what, about August, Mayor? Is that about when that happens? August, September?
So there's a time schedule, but to cut to the chase, it'll be ultimately be approved by the county council in the month of November. That's when
Right.
the actual award happens. Okay, there's a process that starts in June, and there's various things in between.
At what point in time would we know if we had the money? Not barring the county approval, what point in time would you know if the money was available?
When the county council approves the COG recommendations. Now, let me add something else to that. The COG is part of the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization. And the MPO this year is going to get some money from UDOT, about $4.5 million. And this past cycle, what all of the COG members said was every one of the applications had merit, but they ranked them and we ended up 5th and everything didn't get funded. So we have some additional funds we may be able to fund, and there's been discussion with the county. We may be able to fund from that much sooner, and we'll know much sooner. And we won't need to go to the county council. Our first meeting is February 22nd. We may know within a month or so. Mayor Daines at Logan says, let's resubmit the COG applications from last year for the cities that did not get funded and move forward. It's up to the MPO members, which are not all of the cities, but all of the bigger cities. But anyway, the COG process last year was $5.5 million. Logan City has agreed to hold off submitting any applications this coming year, so that all $5.5 million will go to fund all the other city projects. So Mayor Daines said to me in a conversation about a week ago that Providence's project will get funded. I mean, she's one vote, but so that's where we're at. So I think we have some real good options because we've got, besides COG money, this other source of money.
That's good. That's wonderful news to hear, because the commitment has been made to those property owners down there that it will be built next year. We didn't commit to it this year, but we said in 3 years we will be constructing that road, if I remember correctly. And so that would put it into next year. And so if we get the money from COG and we can plan and move forward, I would like to see us immediately, as soon as we get the money, trying to get our engineering on board, our bidders on board as soon as possible, so that when spring breaks next year, that road can be put in and not come in tail end of the year next year. And so there again, and my only caveat would be that we, with tongue in cheek, watch if it doesn't happen, that we as a city move forward with fixing that road as we promised from our own funds to get that road built in next year. So we'll watch, we'll hope, we'll keep our eye on it, and hopefully it does get funded. And I appreciate all the effort you're putting into it and working with these people, but we do have a commitment with those people. That's my number one priority.
Okay. I will keep you advised as I hear information.
My second priority is I would like to work to implement some emergency planning or structure. I think Ryan and I have talked about this. We feel like that our community right now, it's kind of in the hands of the stake presidents. We need to work a little bit more to be interactive and have a relationship and have a confidence level that we got a certain level of emergency preparedness and awareness, and that we can handle an emergency to a degree without too much outside help for a short period of time. That's my second goal. That's all I have.
Okay. 2 goals, 100 South funding and emergency planning for the city. Got it.
I would just comment, just kind of time frame, as I wrote this down, you're talking starting construction spring of 2022.
That's what we promised those people before I came on the council, that it would be built in 3 years, and that, and you know, I think it's not wise to get it so late in 2022 that it's a mud mess and we have to deal with it. Let's get on it early enough. We can get it constructed and be done with it in 2022. Yes.
All right, I'm just making sure that I'd captured that. Okay.
Who's next? You know?
Things that I had written down was finish what we start, get all these master plans finished. The cleanup and clarification of the code is something I'd really want to start looking at some point. I feel like as I've looked at planning and zoning and I've watched several of their meetings, I just don't think that they're getting the information that they want to make good decisions, because they keep sending applicants back repeatedly to do a little more work and bring back more things. So I think it would be helpful for the planning commission if we refined what we expected from applicants and worked up on cleaning up the code. I think it would help the applicants and it would help the planning commission. Something that we need to look at this year is the library. The county has only agreed to fund it through this next year, and we need to decide if it's something that we want to take on and how we would pay for that, where it would be, maybe if we need to talk to adjoining cities if they're interested in having a regional library. But it does seem that there may be changes coming there, and so we should decide what our position is on that. And mostly those two things.
I got 3.
Finish what we start. Yeah, that's number 1.
Master plans, clean up the code, and then the library.
Yeah.
Make a decision on that. Okay. Josh?
Yeah, I think I'm up. Christina gets the last word appropriately. I've got 3 things. One of them, I hope nobody shoots me, but I'll bring it up anyway. First one being is I'd like to start kind of an exploratory discussion on incentives that we can offer to attract businesses here, including in that, actively watching and participating in the EDC RFPs that we get. And with the ultimate goal of, in my mind, I would like to see us attract more technically oriented businesses to Providence, and particularly trying to align with what we're doing with fiber. So that's one that's important to me. This has been discussed before, but I feel like it's really important, and I don't know how it fits in the master planning, but I feel like there needs to be a visioning activity for what the historic city center can and will be, conceptual drawings, other things like this to get people excited and start a vision of what we really want that space to look like 10 years from now. Community activity, community engagement down there, rebuilding and trying to work with those property owners to give that area a facelift, things of that sort. And this is the one that I just didn't know if Carrie and Christina are going to roll their eyes at me, but I was talking with Ryan last week. I feel like we considered the idea of an aquatic center with the rec plan, but I don't know if we really explored it very much. So I've been talking with Millville City and people at Ridgeline High School, and been trying to reach out to Nibley City, and there have been some activities and efforts and other ones that there's some donors who are interested already in doing something like this. I would at least like to put some pencil to paper on that as to what that would potentially cost and who might participate in that, if we were to do something like that. I would at least like to have a price tag on it, because I feel like with our aging population, the ability and access to aquatic sports becomes increasingly important for them in their older age, and I think it would be a great boon to our community and our high school sports programs and things of that sort. So,
Josh, what was the second one?
Historic downtown.
Yeah, historic downtown kind of visioning
Oh,
activity.
Downtown, okay.
And you're right, Josh, we didn't explore it extensively. There was just too much with the
Too
plan.
much, yeah.
And
And I
so-
feel bad that no it's not in the master plan, but I'm willing to make those connections and have those conversations so we can have better information to look at.
And I think that's awesome. I think an aquatic center would be awesome.
Yes.
So I'm not rolling my eyes, I'm smiling.
Okay. You can do both. That's all right. Won't be the first time someone's rolled their eyes at me.
No, I think it's great.
Tina, you're up.
Okay, so like Janelle said, I want to start the cemetery master plan and I want to be on that committee. If I decide not to run for council, I still want to be on the citizen section of that committee.
And which master?
Over your dead body, Christina, huh?
Huh?
All right,
Cemetery.
the cemetery.
Plan. Dude, I am obsessed with cemeteries.
I'm not there yet.
It is my favorite holiday all year because I get to go to cemeteries.
Okay.
And then also, again, with Josh in commercial development, start inviting businesses. And then I would like to see more concerts in the park that we did. I don't see why we couldn't make that something that's historically Providence City's thing. The other thing is, I know Ryan, this is a goal for staff, not me, but I'll help. I know, Ryan, you're working on a GIS system. I'd like to figure out a way to put all of our streetlights on some sort of system. There's so many streetlights as I drive around that are not shining, like the lights are burned out, and I don't want to, sometimes I don't stop and look at them, but I just try to remember where they're at, and then I forget to call Rob and tell him where they're at. So I'd like to figure out a little bit a better way to report that, or a little bit better way to keep our streets safe that way.
So there is a way to report that, and Rob goes on Rocky Mountain Power's webpage. Any resident can do that.
I'm just saying it's a matter of stopping, getting out of your car, reading the number on the street pole. And a lot of places it's not safe just to jump out, like on Second East up along the other day. I was like, I should stop and get the number off that street light. But anyway.
What I wrote was a streetlight inventory.
Sure, thanks. That's it.
Okay, so I have 4 items: master plan for the cemetery, business incentives, concerts in the park, and a streetlights inventory.
Yep.
Okay, I've got some here. I agree wholeheartedly with Josh about the whole downtown area. And what I'd suggest is when we have this conversation about the library, that rather than just talk about the library, which is a city-owned building, is let's talk about and connect with all of the property owners in the historic part of downtown. I've talked to Ralph Call, and he's got some plans. I'm going to write about it in the newsletter. He's bringing some of the old chapel back to how it was originally built by the church. He's hiring an architect. Anyway, I think it's worthwhile to develop a master plan or some kind of a plan for the downtown area. I talked to Kathleen Alder, the monument on the corner there on Center and Main. Kathleen Alder was part of that, and she's said that that project still has $14,000-15,000 left over.
What do you want to do with the monument?
Well, nothing with the monument, but Kathleen's on board with working on a master plan. I've had a conversation with Ralph Call, who's the owner of the Old Rock Church, about some things. He's willing to do some things and contribute some things. Well, we've got other historic parts of the downtown area. Here's something, and it's probably beyond this year, but just something tuck in the back of your head. We need a master plan for the west side of Highway 165, and let me tell you and explain why. When I look at a developer comes to us, and behind Macy's is a good example. We're considering the zoning, we're considering what the developer wants to put there, but I look at it and say, how does that fit with everything else around it? When we put more housing there, what are we creating? More families, more children, or kids walking across the street going to school. So when I look at something, I say, how does everything fit in? Now, Josh mentioned an incentive to bring people, businesses here, preferably retail. If on the west side of the highway, we have a master plan for that area, then you've got the proper business owner that says, here's the property I'm looking at. The city says, well, here's how, your business fits into our master plan. We have infrastructure, we have a road here, this is where it's going. So they're looking at a lot of different cities and they're looking at raw land, but if we've got a plan that fits them in nicely, then they're more likely to say yes. Those are my two things. Okay, I can put all this down. I'll cross-check it with Ryan. I'll send it out tomorrow. However you want to go forward with this.
I had one
Ryan,
that should be the council's. And I guess I'm gonna ask, somewhat, I love each one of you, but I've got to ask and be surprised that you didn't pick up the single most biggest ask of the staff was the water master plan, and none of you brought it. That we need to know where our water is. We're building a water tank. We're desperately in growth. If we don't manage sewer and water, we don't have other growth. That water plan is critical. To have that plan in place is extremely critical.
So I think we've heard people say, let's complete all of master
I
plan.
know. The ones we've started, we haven't started, right?
We started.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I'd go so far as to think I don't think the council meant to omit that. I think we knew known that, but I can't speak for them. But I think everyone's in agreement.
Perfect. I would appreciate that. From my side, I would truly beg that be one of your priorities.
Absolutely.
I
Ryan,
agree.
I'll drink to that. I'll drink my water.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I got water too.
Thank you.
Mine's
I all
empty.
like it.
Mine's is Dr. Pepper and it's empty.
All right. Well, you can fill it with water,
Okay,
but I would appreciate that one to be on your list.
that's a good one, Ryan. Let's go for it.
Okay. All right. We'll get this out tomorrow.
Well, and Ryan, I think sometimes you need to guide us to what should be our priorities because you're there day to day and we have our assignments. I noticed everyone mentioned something that was part of their assignments. And so.
Well, it's just that's no fun and we're just looking at the fun things, right?
Well, and the aquatic center is the water master plan. It's another reservoir in case of emergencies.
Can I add something about the aquatic center? There was mention about elderly people being able to use the facilities in an aquatic center. If you're on Medicare, in other words, you're 65 and older, you can go to any health club free. You can go to the sports academy, you can use their pool, you can use anything there. I play racquetball, doesn't cost me anything. And there's a lot of people, we play 3 days a week, 10:30. There's a lot of people, elderly people that use the facilities there, pool and everything else.
Awesome. All right. What's next on the agenda?
Okay, well, we have council reports. Then we wanted to go into executive session for performance review. And then it's just the council and Ryan. And that's what we have. So we go to council reports, get through that, and then we go to executive session. So that's what's left.
Mayor, do you mind if I go first? I'm gonna go ahead and pass on my council report tonight, just so we ended it at a reasonable hour.
All right. I'll pass on mine because one of mine was to talk about one of our goals.
I don't have anything.
Okay,
Nothing from me.
Nothing for me.
Janelle?
Nothing from me either.
All right, we're done with our council reports. Okay. I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
I'll second that.
Second from, motion from